Hey guys, my name is Jeff and this is the 2023 Lexus LC500 Coupe. And not only is this Lexus's flagship car, it's got a unique presence, but it's also a grand touring sports car, which makes it fairly unique in its own right. The cosmetics and the styling appearance of this car is also very unique, and it's even that much different from the Lexus LFA, the other Lexus supercar, that it really just stands out on the road. And the cool part is, this being a grand touring car means that you can take it anywhere from Phoenix, for example, to here in California, where the weather is significantly nicer, and of course it's comfortable on the way over there, but you still get all of your sporty handling for whenever you need it after you're done with your road trip, which is a really cool advantage of a car like this. Now, the LC500 starts around $93,000 but can quickly go up. This particular car, as equipped, has things like the dynamic handling package along with the premium wheels that really jumps the price up to $106,000 as equipped, and even with our carbon fiber roof. The LC500 is also available as a convertible and as a hybrid option, though this is the coupe that we're going to be taking a look at today. So with that, what we'll do is we'll start with the exterior, we'll talk about the interior, move to the powertrain, and of course we'll take it for a drive. Moving on to the exterior of the Lexus LC500. First off, this car is absolutely gorgeous. Not that I need to tell you that, it's on your screen, you can see it in front of you, and just how good this car looks. As a Lexus flagship model, it has such a presence to it. It looks like a sports car, grand tourer, supercar, and obviously there's a lot of styling influences that you could say are similar to other sports cars with these super wide fenders, very swoopy, low slung hood. It just looks fantastic, and even some carbon on the hood that I'll show you later as we get into it. One of the other things is this car always seems very similar to the Lexus LFA as well, which is of course its V10 powered sibling, that it looks very similar to this, a bit of an older car with some different upgrades. I would argue there's a lot of benefits that this car has that that car did not come with. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. So as we move around to the front of our car, first of all, this color is cadmium orange, which is an absolutely stunner of a color. You can see there's all sorts of little microflakes in it that really help the car to stand out. It looks absolutely incredible in the sun, and it's always going to be easy to find your car in a parking lot, which is never a bad thing. Now, as we take a look at the front here, you can see we have that sort of stereotypical Lexus grille, which is becoming a trademark symbol to remind people of when they're looking at a Lexus. And one of the cool parts about this particular one is it's finished in this gray metallic, which sort of really stands out. You can see it looks different from the chrome, but it's a nice contrast to our cadmium orange, in my opinion. We have our Lexus badge, and then we get into some of the cool design details about this car as well, not to mention some of the cool lines in the hood that really go into the grille lines, as you can see here. Really cool attention to detail in this car. Now, we do have triple beam LED headlights, which is also a Lexus trademark. You'll see them organized in different ways. Sometimes they're flat. In this case, they're in a cool sort of triangle shape here on the side, but a very cool, obviously automatic. And you see we've got all these little swoosh marks and cool details in the headlights that are even reminiscent of our daytime running lights, which is this little guy here. And I also like that they integrated more of our sort of metallic gray that's in there. And then we also have some orange painted bits. So everything fills very nicely. You can go for this very unique headlight shape, and it doesn't look out of place or anything like that. We do have some functional vents as well in here that you can see that'll add to what's going to be on the side. So with that, let's take a look at some of our first cool details, and that's going to be the unique suspension for our LC500. Now, when designing the LC500, the designers wanted it to look as sporty and as sleek as possible, and of course the design called for this very low slung hood. I mean, you can look, there's really only about half a foot or so that actually steps up past the top of the wheel, so they had to come up with a new suspension design for that. And this particular car, of course, has these 21-inch wheels as well, which are actually an upgrade. Stock is 20. This has the premium alloy forged wheels there that have a chrome and black finish, so it's going to be a little bit bigger on this car, but standard is 20-inch. On top of that, we also have adaptive suspension that's been added in here as well. In the back, you'll find a Torsen limited slip differential and just lots of cool things. You'll even get rear wheel steering, which helps to move the car around because it is fairly large, but it helps to have the steering, as you can use that in a variety of different ways as well. Performance-wise, built around our V8 to bring it to a stop, we have these massive, absolutely massive disc brakes. You can see my hand for scale. That caliper for the front brakes is huge, which you'll need if you're going to be using it for intense track days, casual driving, whatever the case. You won't have to worry about coming to a stop, which is pretty easy in the Lexus thanks to these large brakes. Not to mention, you're going to look good while you're doing it. Now, as we get to some of the center bits here, we of course have a very nice, cool roof line. Get into our wide rear end, but most importantly, this carbon roof that I mentioned earlier. I mean, just look at this thing. Absolutely gorgeous. It's always a good sign when you've got carbon fiber visible in the exterior of your car from the factory. A very cool touch. We of course have power mirrors, which are not currently closed, but you can manually close them, or of course when you lock the car, they will close as well. And those are also auto dimming, all that good stuff, the technology that you'd be looking for in your luxury Grand Touring car. Over here, we have a cool looking door handle, similar to what we're finding in a lot of modern cars. And of course, you have keyless entry in this as well. Simply touch it, open it up, boom, access in there. And let's go ahead and point out two, our carbon Lexus door guards that are in there. Pretty cool way to enter your car with the carbon roof, carbon door guards, and another little vent on the side here. And again, some more massive wheels, massive disc brakes, important stuff that you want. We do have a locking gas cap with a button inside to undo that. More cool design details that gives us almost this floating roof appearance with the way that they integrated the black and these rear windows. But then we start to get to some really exciting stuff as we come around to the rear of the car. First being, this is very busy on the back of the trunk here, and let me show you some of what's going on here. Now obviously you do have a trunk for all of your storage needs back here, which isn't the biggest thing in the world, but you can definitely hold several bags for traveling, and you have the back seats if you really need them for two people to travel. But then we have this outline here. Now this outline here is actually for our Sport Active wing. So it's an Active Aero wing that'll come out at certain speeds, or it can be manually raised using a button that I'll show you in the interior in a bit. Now as we come to the rear, you can see just how wide this car is. Ridiculously wide, but it has some of the coolest taillights in the business. These are some like holographic style taillights, so you can see some of the red rings. It's just a really cool stylized taillight. Lots of cool accents and reflectors throughout it, more of our gunmetal gray and our chrome. It just looks really good. And of course, LC500 badges. You can see we've got a little bit of a swoop. And if you don't like the Active Aero wing, there are some other upgrades and options that'll replace this with a carbon fiber wing, some static wings, so you don't have to worry about that. But I think it's cool to have the Active Aero bit. It comes out, it's a cool thing to show off. With that, you can see our stylized exhaust sort of tips, at least exhaust covering, a little bit of a diffuser there. You can see we've got these little baby fins that act as the diffuser. Just a generally good looking car, and that's the exterior. You don't need me to tell you how good this car looks, but here it is. Figured we go around, talk about some of the cool details like the limited slip differential, premium wheels, big brakes, the engineering effort to get the suspension reworked to fit the V8 with everything else. Just a very cool car. Let's move on to the interior. Okay, so now we're on the inside of our Lexus LC500, and I think this is where a lot of the Grand Touring and luxury aspects become very apparent, especially the technology differences between this and even some of the other Lexus models. Now, taking a look at the seats here, you'll notice the first thing is we have some very heavy bolstering, and this is a big deal because obviously this car with its big old V8 is very powerful and could use the side bolstering, especially for when you want that mix of sporty driving along with all of the traveling that you can do in your Grand Touring car. On top of that, you'll notice that the seats are actually perforated, and that's because these, of course, have the heated and ventilated seats as well, which we'll get into a little bit more detail about the climate control section later. One of the other things I like about the seats is we also have bolstering in the thigh section. This is a really cool thing to see. A lot of modern cars tend to have more side bolstering, but they don't always have the leg bolstering here. So that's a very nice touch. That lets you know that Lexus is serious about adding performance with the LC500. On the side, we have a really beautiful just appearance from the exterior, the interior of the car as well, just in general. You can see that just the way that we have our leather steering wheel that's perforated. We have a lot of the nice door panels. There's a lot of bits of carbon and just a really cool design language throughout the car as well. As we look at the door handle here, you'll notice we have this really cool pattern on the door. This is actually Alcantara that's right here, but then we also have it, you can see on the A-pillars and into the roof of the car as well. So a lot of luxury, nice touchy-feely components, but then even just looking at things as simple as the door handles, there's a lot of design elements. These handles that are on the passenger side, you could kind of use them as, you know, oh crap bars, so to speak, if you were the passenger and we're driving along on the track. But lots of cool touches. The Lexus clock is kind of a distinct thing that you'll find in any Lexus, but in this particular case, it's now in carbon fiber, which is a really cool touch as well. So moving on to some of the buttons. Now, one of the interesting things about this car is Lexus and Toyota generally like to include a lot of physical buttons, but that's not always the case, especially with this car as they try to automate a lot of stuff, including climate control. So as you can see here, we actually have a variety of physical buttons, and these allow us to, of course, adjust some of our various settings that are to do with the climate control, but really it's just the AC, the vents, and some of the other added bits. And of course, we have our auto button for our Lexus Climate Concierge. If you want to adjust certain things like the heated and ventilated seats, you actually have to do that manually if you want to do it yourself. So you go ahead and click menu, for example, and you can go to climate here on the left with the Lexus trackpad, and now you can get access to the heated and ventilated seats along with the Lexus Concierge service, which, if you're not familiar with, Lexus Concierge is essentially an automatic climate control adjustment system, and generally it works pretty good. If you're comfortable with using that and not in too extreme of temperatures, it'll generally be able to adjust all the settings to make it comfortable in the car without you having to think about it, which is a pretty cool advantage. And of course, if you want to manually adjust it yourself, this car does have dual zone climate, so you and your passenger can each have their own separate. But one interesting thing I wanted to point out was the vent setup. Now obviously we have this beautiful bespoke interior, but the vents are also set up interestingly. You have one vent here on the driver's side and then one in the center just above climate control. But then there's some other vents here that sit above the glove box. You push this button, glove box drops down, and you can put that up. But then we have another vent over here on the far side. So kind of an interesting vent setup for the car, not traditional by any means. And being that this car, as a Lexus product, came out in 2017, you'll see some other touches as we go through the interior here that are obviously a little bit of an older Lexus touch, because this is one of the older models now in the lineup as they switch to some new models, like, for example, these here, which of course are our drive mode. We have traction control in the snow, and then in some of our sport buttons and things like that that are over on this side that I can touch a bit more on the driving section. On top of that, one of the cool parts, as we get to this sporty sort of view from the driver's perspective, everything is very easy to touch from the driver's side. That's not a touchscreen, as I mentioned. You do have to use the Lexus trackpad. But the important stuff right in front of the driver. So first of all, we have this awesome leather-wrapped steering wheel with magnesium paddle shifters that are very clicky, and it's very responsive. It's a ton of fun to use the paddle shifters in this car, but there's some cool features as well. Now, obviously, this car looks very similar to the Lexus LFA on the exterior, and even the interior is very luxurious. But a cool part is there are some features that are carried over from the Lexus LFA. Like, let me show you. So if we touch this button here, staring at our gauge cluster, go ahead and touch it, boom, you can see that our gauge cluster actually moves off to the side, so you can kind of adjust the way that the gauge cluster itself is set up. You can also move through your MID functions, which changes what's displayed as well, and that also works after you shift the mode. You can still adjust that, and you can see how it shifts differently, including some of the different changes. So gear position, things like that, that becomes more visible as you decide to drive the car. And then should you put it in different sport modes even, you can see that it changes, and we get red when we put the car in Sport Plus and in some of the different other driving modes as well. So that's a quick look at some of that stuff. Fairly basic and straightforward as far as what's available. And of course, you keep it in the center for a more driving focused appeal, and you can see that massive red line. So super cool there. Now, there are some other physical buttons and some cool hidden features. One of the nice parts that I like that isn't something you generally think about when buying a car is the fact that this has a lot of physical buttons here for the hood release, but then the gas as well. So if you're worried about somebody getting into your gas tank, this has a locked gas tank that you have to push the button to release before somebody can get in there, which is pretty cool. Some of the buttons you don't use as frequently are hidden kind of out of the way. We have the odometer and trip buttons. This does have the memory seats, so we can find those buttons over there. And of course, power mirror adjustment, power windows, all the good stuff that you need to have in a luxury car like this. As far as the buttons that are manageable here, these buttons don't necessarily control everything on here. You'll have to use the Lexus trackpad for that, which of course, this car won't really let you do a whole lot while you're driving for that adjustment, but you do have your MID displays. Of course, you have music volume, you have your lane assist, and of course, you have your radar cruise control, which is a really nice feature to have. Makes it really easy to commute in this car, all part of that driving experience that you get by having a Lexus like this, and our automatic tail headlight controls, even some of our windshield wiper controls as well. Now, let's move on to what's going on in the center section here. So of course we have our shifter that works, and this is a pretty common Lexus thing. If you've driven the Lexus automatic transmission, you're probably fairly familiar with the way that this works as well. But we also have a cup holder that's hidden up here that stows away if you don't need it. We have our volume knob adjustments, some of the media management, which of course this car does have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. That's a necessity, should be standard in every car these days. And then of course we have a very interesting button right here. This button actually activates the wings. So if you go ahead and push this button, green light comes on, and then you can also notice the rear wing position that comes on in the dash as our rear wing raises in the back, which I think is a pretty cool feature, and you can always put it down. And I guess it's probably an important thing to mention. Hold that, and the wing goes down. So pretty cool feature. You can obviously, this wing will automatically raise and lower at various speeds. I believe it's between like somewhere 40 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour, somewhere in there it'll also adjust. But on top of that, what I really want to show you is the quality, and that has to do with the way that they set up the center console. So check this out. So you can go ahead and you push this down, you can slide it back, and now you get what's essentially like a cup holder, sort of a wallet storage spot, whatever, but you can also choose to grab this tab here. Now you've opened it up to this little pocket, which has some USB charging ports. You can see our aux and even a cigarette lighter port. Now, the cool part is you put that down. Let's say you're ready to hide this. You want your armrest back. You don't want the storage pocket anymore. If you just touch this, it actually soft closes itself back in, which I think is a really neat touch. The amount of engineering effort to make this function smoothly is fairly impressive, and it just speaks volumes of this car. I mean, all of the various buttons for controlling some of our brightness and things on our mirror. You can see it's fairly simple up here, but one of the other important things that this car has is the Mark Levinson 13-speaker sound system, which of course comes with a sub and an amplifier. You can see some of the speakers back there, and it sounds absolutely incredible. Mark Levinson is usually a system available on any Lexus, but it's always worth going into that upgrade because it always sounds phenomenal, and it does in this car as well, especially with how solidly built these Lexus cars are with that sound system. It's just a good time. Now in the back seat here, you can see we have this sporty appearance for the back seat, but really there's no legroom. Of course, the seats automatically, you can adjust if you want the seat and steering wheel to tilt out of the way when you get in and get out. You can turn that off if you don't like it. But in the back seats here, it's not particularly useful. I mean, even with these sets up for like somebody like me and my passenger, you can see that there's no legroom. So really these are best reserved as extra storage or grocery bag storage if you needed it, but you do have the trunk in the back for actual storage if you don't want it visible to the outside. So that's up to you. But that does mean you have plenty of storage as far as it's concerned for taking road trips. And then one of the cool things I wanted to point out, these lights, you just touch them. There is no button. You just touch the lights and they go on and off, which is a super cool feature. So that's a look at all of the things going on in the interior. Obviously, where we're going to spend the most time, you can see Mark Levinson badge back here. It's just a really cool thing, and it really sells the whole Grand Touring experience as where you're going to be spending most of your time. And I could easily spend a ton of time driving in this Lexus LC500. Okay, so now let's check out the powertrain that's sitting in our Lexus LC500. So first off, you can just see we have a ton of various covers and things that are in here that hide some of our different suspension bits, some of the added stuff that maybe you're not interested in. And then of course, we even have a plastic engine cover that's actually a pretty good looking engine cover. Obviously the sporty vents are always fun. Lexus badge, not actually carbon fiber, but it looks like carbon fiber. And then these cool piping for our air filters and stuff. So a fairly good looking engine bay as far as it goes. I mean, even the sort of strut tower mounts here for our adaptive suspension are pretty cool. But the most important part is the engine itself. This is a naturally aspirated 5-liter V8, and it sounds absolutely incredible. Just give this a listen. So now that you're back after your ears hearing that beautiful noise that this thing makes, which you can also control with your paddle shifters on the inside, this is a naturally aspirated 5-liter V8, which produces 471 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque, which is a ton of torque and horsepower. It's similar to a lot of other muscle cars and high-performance cars. On top of that, this car is paired with a 10-speed automatic transmission that is lightning quick to shift, and it feels absolutely amazing. It's a ton of fun to shift yourself if you want to do so, or you can leave it in automatic in sport mode, and the car will take care of it for you. Now, what that allows you to do is, it's a fairly heavy car coming in around 4,300 pounds, but you do get a 0 to 60 in just 4.4 seconds per Lexus, although part of me thinks that's a fairly conservative rating, and you'd be able to knock that down to 4.2, 4.3 seconds with a little bit of practice if you're going to be using this in a very competitive sense. On top of that, the top speed is actually electronically limited to 168 miles per hour. Not that you can legally do that anywhere on any public roads, but worth knowing just in case you decide to take the car to Germany, you'll have no problem on the Autobahn either, which I think is pretty cool. We do have strut bars that hold up the hood, which is pretty expected in a luxury car like this, but everything just looks so good. I like the way everything is presented. You can see all of our various rigidity and chassis reinforcements to remind us of the sporty nature of the LC500. Lots of cool various components that get added. Now, fuel economy. Obviously, this being a Grand Touring car, you're probably going to want to take it places. So it's actually rated by the EPA at 16 miles per gallon city and 24-25 highway. Now, in my experience with the car, the best gas mileage that I've been able to see come up on the average using the car's tech to measure it was 25.4 miles per gallon. And I think that's really impressive. For a V8 to be getting 25 miles per gallon is very impressive. There's some certain naturally aspirated non-hybrid economy cars that don't even get that good of gas mileage. So I think that's pretty cool to mention that this car is able to do that. And then in regular sort of commuting as a mix of highway and city, you'll probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of around 18 to 24, I would say, which is really impressive, but a good looking car nonetheless for the engine. Of course, this sends power to the rear wheels, and so you're going to get a ton of fun. It can certainly get squirrely when you turn off traction control, but everything is super awesome. Lots of technology, super fast, cool car bits, and of course, it just looks good in the complete package. So that's a look at the powertrain that's in there. Now I think it's time that we go ahead and take a look at what's going on in the drive. Okay, so what's it like to drive the Lexus LC500? So first and foremost, comfort and sport. The seats are comfortable, the interior is comfortable, all of the modern technologies that you need is mentioned in the interior, and of course, we have a sporty experience. And so for that, I'm gonna give you a freeway pull here as we're getting ready to get on the freeway. Some downshifts, we've got it in manual mode, and it sounds absolutely incredible. You can hear the crisp downshifts, immediate downshifts. So here's a tap, and you can hear it just immediately clicks and shifts down. It's really impressive. The 10-speed in this car shifts so quickly. It's one of the most, I would say, amazing things about this car. Honestly, I think it even gives it a one-up over the Lexus LFA. So the Lexus LFA is the V10 powered supercar that Lexus built a little while ago, and unfortunately that car has a 6-speed. But listen to this. So we can get over here to the freeway. It just sounds so good. Just the blips, it's immediate shifts from this 10-speed. This thing is right on it every time. It's so good. And then the magnesium paddle shifters are of course attached to the wheel, and they fill up basically the width of your whole hand is how I would describe them. And so you're able to get a lot of really good action out of them. You can hit them in just about any part of the wheel while you're driving. So if that's something that you wanted to experience, it's really easy to do with this car. Now, one of the other things that's pretty cool about some of the technology as far as the driving experience goes is this car also has a adjustable ratio steering as well. So that's going to be constantly getting played with as you're going around messing with the car. And currently we have the car in Sport Plus, in Sport S. So what that's doing is it's also going to sort of heighten and hold out some of the revs and just kind of change the way the car performs. And obviously we hear tons of that Sport Active exhaust. And then some more downshifts as we come in here. Oh, listen to that. Oh yes, more of that please. Oh yes. So this car is amazing to drive. I don't think I need to tell you that. Obviously you want to go to your local dealer and test drive one of these for yourself if you are interested in purchasing one. But fact of the matter is, even though this looks like a laid back Grand Tour, which is absolutely elegant, and there is nothing like this car on sale. I mean, obviously you can start to look at some of the other Grand Touring cars, but this Lexus is so unique. There's certainly no JDM cars like this. The styling feels so unique and original to this car. If you want the LC500, in my opinion, there are no suitable replacements. You have to buy a Lexus LC500. You can't go and buy any other car because there's not something similar. Are there tons of cars available around the price point that are fast? Yeah, of course there are. It's tons of cars around that, and even cars for less. There's a lot of value to be had around that $93,000 to $106,000 price point. Now, if you're looking for this car and you like it, you need to buy the LC500. That's all that needs to be said. The steering is great. The fact that you can daily drive this car, expect Toyota Lexus reliability. It's a naturally aspirated V8, something that's not very common anymore these days. And it sounds amazing. There's a lot of heart and soul that get put into this car. The interior, there's no rattles or noises. Everything is dead quiet when you want it to be, loud when you're on the throttle, and you just get this visceral experience where everything feels like quality. There is nothing that feels like it's bending or flaking. Everything is solid. And it's just a good time. I can say you can honestly drive this car across the country and then be joyfully driving it through some curvy canyons the next day. It's such a beautiful blend, and the styling, like I said, is just a really cool mix of everything. There's nothing that is quite as good as the LC500. Not to mention, it's fairly fast. Not the fastest car in the world, but it's faster than 90% of what's going to be on the road, so you won't have any problems there. But just a cool car with a lot of really cool technology with various sport modes. You do have, of course, eco, comfort, snow, all that type of stuff, but really that's not what this car is for. It's for the performance modes. It's for driving it normal, being comfortable, getting fantastic gas mileage. So really, that's just all I wanted to say. So in conclusion, there you have it. There's nothing quite like this car on sale. It offers such a cool, unique experience with tons of miles per gallon. and I just love this car to say the least. So with that, that's going to be the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed it, can hit that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. You can comment below and let me know if you have one and what you think of it, or if you're considering buying one, or if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And of course, get subscribed for more content like this in the future. With that, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.